Hey guys, what's up? Got another tutorial for you guys today. Today it is the Red Hood helmet. Right here. And I'm going to walk you through this one, through everything, even the battle damage, which part the eyepiece comes out. It currently just sits in there. Okay, so here I've got all my patterns already cut out on 6mm foam from TNT Cosplay Supply. For the earpiece, I cut that in an outward angle all the way down to where the jawline is right here. And what we're going to do is basically pop that out and then we'll glue it like this. So it'll have a ear on the side of the helmet there. And we're going to go and start with our undercuts for the brow piece on top part of the head. And try and get your blade and cut about halfway through the foam, just a straight cut. You don't want to go too deep. In the same breath, you don't want to go too thin either. Just want to pull it apart. Make sure you can get some good amount of hot glue in there. Do that to both sides. This can also be made with 4 or 5mm craft foam as well. The 6mm is just slightly thicker and it'll make the helmet a little more rigid. And something else I've done with the cut right here, I actually cut that in an inward angle cut, so it's got a bevel to it. And now that we've got all of our pieces cut out, we're going to go ahead and apply some heat. Before we apply our heat, we're going to go ahead and make another undercut around the nose area right here. It's just another straight cut. And also, once you start applying heat, these lines will expand. Now we've got the side pieces all heated up. I'm gonna go ahead and try to basically pre-bend the pieces just so it's easier to glue. I like to hold out my undercuts there, almost I can overbend them, so it's just easier to fall. For the eyebrow pieces, I've already heated this one up. I'm basically just almost folding this completely in half for the kind of scowled look on the eyebrows. The rest of the piece, I'm kind of basically working it in half and then just going kind of the opposite direction right there. Now we give it this nice curve shape. I apologize, my kids are playing and being kind of loud. Okay, now we're going to take our low temp hot glue and we're going to fill in our undercuts. They should be already pretty wide, so it should be easy to just fill them in. You want to make sure you use a low temp hot glue gun for this. Because it does dry faster, cool off faster. Alright, now we've got another undercut to do. This one I like to use underburns, or my wood burner, for what I call underburns. Or you can also basically do a V-groove undercut. Using wood burner just saves time and a little bit of glue. You just want to go over this a couple of times. You do not want to hold it in one place for too long, because you will burn straight through the foam, and you don't want that. And you want to do this part fairly quickly. Because if you do wait too long, then it's not gonna stick. Because basically what you're doing is you're melting the foam and fusing it back together. And that's what it looks like. Another thing I forgot to mention earlier was cutting these pieces out. This eyepiece right here, cutting it out, I cut it in an outward angle cut with the top of the eye. I just cut it at a straight cut. Excuse me. And I will do the other side. And now comes the fun part. We get to glue it all together. And I just use DAP Weldwood contact cement. I'm gonna start with the earpiece here, so you're basically just gonna pop that back out normal. And I trade, there should be this line right here, excuse me, that's included in the pattern. Just don't cut this part out, because you're gonna use it to glue it all together. And you're basically just placing your glue on the Sharpie line. It's alright if you get a little messy with it. It doesn't have to be perfect, because you're gonna paint it later. Alright, you're gonna flip the side piece over, and I've traced out right here where this part is gonna overlap right here. And of course on this side you just have to get the edge of the ear just enough to make contact good enough to stick. And while that's setting up, go ahead and do the other side. And let the glue set for a few minutes. Just gonna line it up and push it all together. And that's what we've got so far. Go ahead and do the other side. Okay, I've already went ahead and applied glue to both edges of the top of the head. And when you push these together, so you don't have to do much seam covering later, you want to line up the outside edge, push it together. I like to use my thumb to feel that it's flush. I'll get a little closer there for you. And you don't have to do this fast. You can go slow. In fact, I prefer to go slow, so that way I know that it's all getting just as smooth as possible. As you do this, just make sure you line up your hash marks. Hash marks are not 100% absolutely necessary, but they do help. Especially with pieces that are pretty long, or pieces that have a really odd shape or curvature to them. I know some people like to use maybe the surface of their table to align their seams like this to make sure they're all smooth. And that's perfectly fine if that's what you like to do. Everybody has their own way of doing stuff. Main reason why I don't use my table is because I've got bumps and grooves and scratches, and it's not exactly 100% smooth. So my seams may not turn out as smooth as I would like. So I just do it this way. All the way to the end there. Let's run my finger across it, turn it over, make sure that it's making full contact on the underside. And there we have the top of a head. And then we're going to apply glue on these edges and corresponding edges on the side of the helmet. Okay, I went ahead and just did the one side at a time because I don't want to take too long doing this and have the glue dry out and not be tacky anymore. I like to start with the front of the helmet, just so that way it's kind of it's the face of the helmet, of course. I mean, it's what everybody sees first. So if you happen to get off just a little bit, I'd much rather it be off in the back rather than on the front. And something else you want to make sure you do is apply glue along the full edge of the foam, especially while you're going edge to edge like this. There's sometimes where you really have to push and squeeze and pull the foam to get it to line up properly on the hash marks. That's why we have the hash marks, because sometimes there's odd little pieces that need to line up, and you'll have to push and pull and squeeze the foam to get it to line up correctly and make the correct shape. That's also why I like to preheat my foam pieces, because it puts up less of a fight that way. Much easier to glue together pieces that are already pre-shaped and kind of fit together, more so than flat pieces. This is probably the hardest part of this whole helmet build. Just making sure those hash marks line up. And of course, if you decide to build this helmet too, you don't have to do it exactly the same way I'm doing it. You can build the two halves, get the two halves completely together, and then push them. You have this center seam be the last one. It's all up to you. And once I get it all lined up, I like to push it all together and make sure that the full edges are lining up properly. And this is going to be overlapping like that once we get the other part on there. And that's where we're at so far. Okay, so here's the helmet completely put together. I've also already went ahead and Dremeled down the seams. The Dremel head that I use is really worn down. A stone bit would work just as good. But basically you don't want one that's brand new, otherwise it'll take off too much foam and it'll be too fuzzy. But you want to Dremel down your seams so it's easier to cover. And now I'm going to burn in the lines using wood burner. And you don't have to press it in that hard. All you have to do is just touch it to the foam. It'll do its job. And then the lines burned in, and now we'll go ahead and do the lines right up here. Alright, now we've got these lines on top burned in. And the way I place these is I place them just next to the seam line, because you don't want to burn the seam line, so that'll just cause it to bust open and cause your whole helmet to fall apart. But now we're going to take some quick seal and we're going to go ahead and cover up our seams. And this stuff is not sandable, so you're going to want a cup of water on hand. And it's super easy to do. All you have to do is just place it on the seams. Like that, and you just rub it in. Get it just as smooth as you can without the water at first. And you just smear it out and make it just as smooth as possible. And you just dip your finger in the water and you go over it. You want to feather out the edges because you don't want this stuff showing up after you paint it. Make sure you don't get the quick seal into the lines you just burnt in. You could always reburn it later, but it's best just to go around them as much as you can. Then you'll just do that, covering up all the seams all over the helmet. And one thing I didn't mention earlier was I put an insert into the eyes just to kind of make them a little bit smaller. And I'm actually going to put some quick seal around those areas and do the same, kind of just blend it, make it look a little bit less like there's just something behind the eyes. Yeah, I'm gonna go and get the rest of the helmet and be back soon. Alright, and here we have all the seams completely covered, front and back. We're gonna let that dry, and once that dries, we're going to start really battle damaging it. Got the helmet all put together, all painted. I coated it with a couple of coats of Plasti Dip, and then I went over it with a apple red primer. I hand painted around the eyes black, and I dry brushed the undercut areas, make them show up a little better. Same with this wood burner areas and around the ears as well. If you want to, you can leave it how it is, add some mesh in the eyes. What I do for the mesh is I take the window screening and I'll spray paint it silver. I'll double it up, and then keep the black side of the screening towards your eyes so you can see out better, but keep the silver facing out, silver or white, whichever you prefer. Then I usually just hot glue it in there. But what I'm going to do with this helmet is I'm going to severely battle damage it and actually cut out a chunk right here. And to do that, I'm going to use my wood burner and just going to plunge it in there. And you don't want to use just do straight cuts, because you want to make it look like it broke. And it'll probably take a couple of passes to get it how you want. But there is no set pattern for this or anything. It's just however you want to do it. And like I say, probably have to go over a couple of areas a couple of times. Be careful not to burn your fingers, because the wood burner is hot. And there we go. There's just like that. If you guys wanted to add maybe a couple of cracks or whatever, you really can't go wrong with battle damage. And there we go. And now we're going to take our silver. We're going to highlight the metal areas. And it doesn't take very much. Just take it and spray on the rag. And you really want to get in this area where you cut out the eye, because you want to make it look like it was a metal helmet. So you really want to make sure that you get the edges and all the cuts and scrapes and everything. And you just want to keep on doing that for the whole helmet. Anywhere where there's sharp edges or anything that's sticking up that could get caught, anything and paint get scraped off. Alright guys, and that is it for the weathering battle damage on this helmet. As you can see, I went with the silver and just highlighted all the high points, especially around the broken out area. And I went ahead and I want to keep this piece. I went ahead and weathered it up because I think it'd make a pretty sweet just picture or something like that. Or you can have it to where it's like that. Yeah, that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. I hope it was a big help. If you guys want to purchase the templates, I might have a link down in the description below. Printed out at 100% will fit a 22-inch head. So if your head's a little bit bigger than 22 inches, then you might want to increase the size before printing it out. And I tried making this just as simple as possible. If you guys have any questions or anything, feel free to comment. You can also follow me on Instagram at ThatOutaHail, and Facebook, the same thing. You guys have a great one.